Now to the Trump administration's legal battle over the deportation of hundreds of Venezuelan migrants. A federal judge demanding an explanation as to why the government ignored his order blocking the deportations and to turn around the planes that had already taken off. Our senior political correspondent Rachel Scott is tracking the latest. Rachel, good morning.
Wait, good morning to you. And this showdown between the White House and the courts only escalating this morning. The administration tried to get this hearing canceled, even calling for the judge to be removed, but they were forced to show up and explain their actions. Overnight, a federal judge hauling the Trump administration back into a courtroom, demanding to know why those deportation flights landed in El Salvador when he ordered that they be turned around. The administration claims the men on board were members of criminal gangs. Many were deported under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which allows the government to deport people with little to no due process, and was last used to round up Japanese Americans during World War II.
He has gotten rid of them a lot. There are a lot more to go.
As those two planes were in the air, that federal judge James Boasberg, speaking from the bench, ordering the planes to return to the United States immediately. But that did not happen. The White House offering several explanations. The press secretary raising questions about the way that order was given.
Well, there's actually questions about whether a verbal order carries the same weight as a legal order as a written order.
But the judge not buying that, calling it a, quote, heck of a stretch, and also pushing back on the administration's claims that the order didn't apply because the planes had crossed into international waters. The judge stating, my equitable powers are pretty clear that they do not lapse at the water's edge. The architect of the president's immigration policy, Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, questioned whether judges have the authority to rule over the president's policies at all. Is it the administration's understanding that you would comply with the verbal order?
No district court judge who presides over just some small, little geography of the whole country could possibly presume to have the authority to direct the expulsion of terrorists from our soil, who, by the way, are also here illegally.
The White House has not released the identities of those deported or extensive details on their alleged crimes. The Justice Department lawyers refuse to provide any additional information to support their claims, insisting it would pose a national security risk. Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee accusing the Trump administration of an unlawful brazen power grab. But Border Czar Tom Homan defiant.
We're not stopping. I don't care what the judges think. I don't care what the left thinks. We're coming.
So there was a third deportation flight that took off after the judge's written orders were published. The administration is arguing that those immigrants were deported on different grounds. They'll have to submit a sworn declaration today to back that up. And another hearing is now scheduled for Friday, George.
Okay, Rich, let's get more on this from our chief Washington correspondent, John Carl. And John, White House has been signaling resistance to the courts since the president was inaugurated on January 20th. This is the most direct defiance yet.
But, George, we are seeing a wide-ranging, strategic, deliberate effort by this White House to shift the balance of power away from Congress, away from the courts, into the presidency. So this is the most direct. I mean, you have a situation where the administration is defying the verbal orders of a judge and then refusing to answer basic questions about who was on those flights. But it's against the backdrop of the administration disavowing civil service protections in the firing of federal employees. We saw the president himself declare that President Biden's preemptive pardons are null and void. We have seen the president issue executive orders to sanction law firms who have done work for his political opponents. And we've seen the administration fail to comply with an order to resume foreign aid that has been congressionally mandated, passed by Congress. All that against the backdrop of a senior administration official who you heard there in Rachel's piece say, I don't care what judges think. Now, George, we've seen presidents complain and complain mightily about court rulings, but what we have never seen is a president or a White House suggest that they will not comply with a judge's order. It's important to point out that right now, though, the administration says they are no longer, they are at least temporarily halted, consistent with the judge's order, those deportation flights under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. They are, at least for now, they say, complying with that judge's order.
You laid out this litany of cases that we've seen so far. Several of them will end up likely at the Supreme Court, and that's when we face the real question, because we've heard J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance in the past say that the president even could have the power to defy the Supreme Court's ruling.
Yeah, J.D. Vance quoting President Andrew Jackson, a quote which is not actually historically accurate, but often repeated. The Chief Justice has made his ruling. Now let him enforce it. That will be the big test. Now, I should say that the administration feels confident that they're going to win many of these cases, that they will ultimately prevail at the Supreme Court. But if the Supreme Court, and remember, this Supreme Court has ruled against this president, if that happens, will they comply with that order? That's the real constitutional test.
Okay, John Carl, thanks very much.